So, we finished Resident Evil 6 on Friday, last Friday, right before Boyfriend of the Stream. We got through the Ada storyline in 2 days. This game was something. It's the best I could say about it. It was an experience that I'm glad is behind me. Well, let's talk about why. Some quick stats. We began this game on May 8th, finished it on June 7th. It took us 10 streams to finish, so that's all 4 storylines. 27 hours, 37 minutes, and 51 seconds. That's an entire day. That's an entire day of playing this game. Pages of notes, 17. Not bad. Best parts. I think that the controls actually feel really good for this game. That's the thing. Like, gameplay-wise, it feels really good. It's fun to, like dodge and weave and duck and weave around. I really like the fact that now you can move around and shoot, you know what I mean? Major improvement from where it was in RE5. I like that the AI does not get in the way of the game. That's really, really nice. I think that's one of my big problems with RE5 is that Sheva was not the best and the brightest among us, right? Her AI, her CPU wasn't. I like Sheva, but like her CPU was not the best and the brightest. But in this game, I like the fact that they don't really have their own health bars, so you can kind of like forget about them for the most part, which is really, really nice. And the melee is also really fantastic. I like the fact that if some zombie or Javo comes near me, I can just fuck him up. I can just do that, and it's over. Dunzo, done. And so that's one of the best parts of this game. I think that some of the storylines have interesting plot points in there. I think there's interesting like moments that really just are captivating and are worthy of discussion, right? Pierce's sacrifice. I think that the parallels between Resident Evil 2 and 6. I think that the fact that it was the children of Wesker and Birkin, 2 of Resident Evil's most famous villains, teaming up together. I think that's really interesting thematically. So there are so many interesting parts to this. There are little bits of gems. There are gemstones within the rough. But the not so best parts really eclipse that. It really puts a bunch of the good parts into, casts a pall, a shadow over them. I think the biggest one is the repetitive levels. The gameplay might have been really fun, playing the characters might have been really fun, but the levels are just really repetitive. You just do the same exact thing from room to room to room, and it's really just, I don't know, at some point it felt like just a slog. I was pretty over it at a certain point. And so that's one of my biggest ones. That's one of my biggest hang-ups with this game. I think that another point is there are too many action sequences that really jump the shark. This is what I say when we're playing through Resident Evil 7, that I'm praising it a lot for, is that Resident Evil 7 feels so much more grounded than Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6, like I said, went too far on the action side, right? RE5 was like ramping up there, but RE6 like threw it off the cliff, you know what I mean? It Heihachi Mishima'd the action off the cliff. It was too much. It was simply too much. Like the jet scenes, the car chase through China scenes felt weird. There was a missile, an random underwater lab, and fighting a dinosaur. That's too much for me. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but it was just too much happening all at once. And it blends in with this next point, which is the Chris storyline. I think the majority of my problems stemmed in the Chris storyline. That one was the one that was too action-packed. Too much was going on there. And to be honest with you guys, I think if they cut it out, I think it would have been a better game. it wouldn't have saved the game. But if they cut out the Chris storyline, I think so many things would have been fixed if they just cut it out. They did not need Chris Redfield there. I think they could have accomplished a lot of what they accomplished just with Leon and Ada alone. Leon, Ada, and the two Jake and Sherry alone. Chris did not need to be in this game at all. In my opinion, he did not need to be in this game, and he cluttered it up a little bit too much. Pierce was the most interesting part of it, but I will say this. I think that one way they could have fixed the Chris storyline was, instead of making it Pierce, they should have gone with somebody he already knew. I think that would have made the sacrifice at the end of his storyline so much more interesting if they went with somebody that he already knew. I'm thinking like a Jill or a Sheva, right? How impactful would it be if the person that brought Chris back into the fold and ended up sacrificing themselves was Jill or Sheva? That would have been such a much better sacrifice to make than some random dude, right? Because we've had time to get to know those two characters. Also, amnesia arc, weird. Sorry, that was a weird thing to throw in there. Amnesia arc, really? We're really doing an amnesia arc? Yeah, that was one of my cringe moments. Other thing I'm not really too keen on was the C virus. I think the C virus I feel like everything was weaving together in a really nice tapestry, right? Before Resident Evil 6. I think the Ouroboros virus was really wrapping together the Las Plagas, the viruses, and it was really weaving them in a really wonderful tapestry. It really felt like you needed all the other parts of the virus to get to the Ouroboros for Resident Evil 5. But C virus feels like something just kind of a little bit out of left field, and it feels like it kind of threw out some of the important lore bits that the other viruses had been building to just kind of do its own thing. And that was kind of annoying, right? As somebody who's following the story of Resident Evil, it was kind of annoying to forgo the thing that we've been working towards, you know? So that was another hang-up of mine. So let's get into some positive things. My favorite character of the entire thing, you love her, you hate her, but I love her, Miss Ada Wong. Oh, she's so cool. She is too cool in this game, you guys. She is too cool. I like her story a lot. I like she still feels like Ada. Ada feels like one of those characters that even as she gets remade, still feels like her. You know what I mean? It is undoubtedly her chic nature, her elegant nature, mixed in with this kind of I don't know, it does a really good job of conveying this kind of complicated nature of her character, right? Is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? Would she be a bad guy for the check? You know what I mean? But she's also staying away from the super bad guys like Simmons. I don't know. There was some really good moments in Ada's character in this. I feel like this is the game where she really, really shined, and I really appreciate her. Least favorite character, I don't think it's gonna surprise any of you guys. I've spent most of my time complaining about this man. This man's so annoying. This man is so annoying. This man is the bane of my existence. He is too much. He's angry for no reason. He's throwing drinks around the bar, getting amnesia for no reason. He's just too much. He's too much. And like I keep saying, his storyline was one of those that you really did not need. You really did not need Chris Redfield in this game. I think you could have gone the entire game without him. So yeah, Chris, asshole. Favorite storyline was Leon and Helena, though. Even though Ada was my favorite character, Leon and Helena is really rewarding if you've played through Resident Evil 2. If you played through Resident Evil 2, you will see the parallels, the beautiful, beautiful parallels between that storyline and theirs, and it's exciting to go, oh my god, I remember when Leon had to crawl through sewers and now he's doing it again. It's so cool to see him like hole up in a gun shop like he did in Resident Evil 2. That's super sick. I like the fact that it's him fighting like the ones that look like and act like zombies, you know what I mean? Not the Javo, but the zombies, and it's really cool. He's teamed up with a girl who has a thing for red attire. He meets up with Sherry again, meets up with Ada again. It's really, really nice. So Leon's was definitely my favorite. Least favorite storyline, not gonna surprise you. I'm gonna keep going on about it, but the Chris and Pierce storyline, not needed. You didn't need it. I think you could have gone without it. If you want, keep Pierce. Take Chris out. You don't need that. And like I said in the beginning, I think this would have made so much more of an impact. I love you, Pierce. I mean, no disrespect when I say this. This would have made so much more of an impact had they not gone with a new character and instead put in either Sheva or Jill or somebody else that Chris was close to. Maybe even Claire. I don't know. Anybody else. I think his would have had much more of a punch to it had that happened. Honestly, I think Sheva. That would have been my vote. Favorite boss? Surprisingly, this was between House and Ustanak, but Ustanak ended up winning because I think as cool as it was to be able to use Pierce's, like, you know, his infected arm, there was something really cool about like this team up between Wesker and Sherry to take down Ustanak. You know what I mean? Ustanak's kind of like, feels like a Mr. X tyrant-like character, and that was really cool to take him down. It feels like you're using the same skills that you've been honing throughout the game. That felt really good. And just, like I said, the teamwork that they exhibit is so cool to take this guy down. So, appreciate it. I like him a lot. Favorite story moment? Surprisingly, as much as I've been railing about it, is Pierce's death. I think that this moment is the most impactful out of the entire game. I thought it was really special. I think it's really unexpected. And so that's what made it really effective. But I will say, like I said, if they did somebody else, if there was somebody else who had already been closer to Chris, I think it would have made much more impact. But still, it was a good one. It was a really good moment, gave me chills. I love you, Pierce. Please call me back. Favorite lore bit was the family. I think this idea of this like secret society, completely, you know, it's new to the Resident Evil franchise for this game, and it's cool. It's cool that they added that you have this like fraternity of people who are like manipulating society behind the scenes. I don't know, like Illuminati kind. That's a cool idea, and it makes you wonder, put a pin on this, who else has been in on the family throughout the rest of the series. So I like it. So all in all, my final thoughts on this game are, it's bad. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of it. I think I went into it really excited and really wanting to like it because I was so excited to get away from the Resident Evil 5 controls. But there's a lot in there that just is not working in its favor, you know? The storyline, it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. It's just convoluted and kind of stupid. It doesn't feel very part of the Resident Evil franchise. Just too wild of a story, too repetitive levels. I don't know. And at some point, it just feels like a slog. It just feels like a slog to get through the storylines. And sometimes the storylines don't even give you too much. So, what did I rate it when we finished it? A 3 out of 10. Now, after a week, I'm a little kinder. Still low, but a 4 out of 10. Just because it was a pretty fun, like, controls wise. But generally, it's just not my favorite. It's just not my favorite, and I'm sad that this is the last time we see Leon for a while. Good question, Jimmy. Great question, because that's the next part. Here's the ranking. Where does Resident Evil 6 fit into this? So, Resident Evil 4 Remake, first RE game I played, fell in love with it. I love this game to no end. Then we have Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and then Resident Evil 5, right? So that's my ranking currently. So where does Resident Evil 6 fit into this? Oh, I gotta say it's the bottom of my list. This game is my Final Fantasy X2. Resident Evil 6 is my Final Fantasy X2. And it makes you really appreciate like how well done the lore is in Resident Evil 5. This is the new thing that we tried for Ravi and people really liked it. And so, if you like this game though, here are some things that I think give off similar, better vibes, right? If you enjoy something with like zombies and such, I recommend something like Train to Busan, or Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is a bit more comedic, but I think it's really funny. I think Simon Pegg is very funny in it. Train to Busan is a Korean foreign film. Very, very exciting. Wonderful zombie scenes. I really enjoyed it. If you like just the mindless action of Resident Evil 6, please watch The Meg. I love the Meg movies. Meg movies are chock full of that kind of like, I don't know, what's the word? Like silly action movie stuff where like Jason Statham looks at the camera and he goes, "We've got to hunt a shark." Like those kinds of things. Train to Busan is a great film. I love Train to Busan. And also Gong Yu, I think his name is. My husband, I love him so much. For books, I recommend these three. Diamond Eye is about a sniper in the Russian army. Very, very cool. Very cool. It's a really fascinating story, right? It's a really fascinating story, and the story reminds me a lot of Ada, and that's why I included it. So if you want kind of this like badass woman protagonist, check out The Diamond Eye. The Scorpion is an LGBT romance. It's a detective romance between this lady cop and a lady reporter, and it's really interesting. And for some reason, it reminds me a lot of Helena. Just the way that the lady cop holds herself and like this kind of guilt that she's carrying with her reminds me of the main character in The Scorpion. So check that out. And if you like, if you're interested more in Chinese history, we spent a lot of time in China, please read Wild Swans. It is a nonfiction book, 3 generations of women from a grandmother, mother to a daughter, living in China from the Imperial China, Nationalist China, Communist China to where it is now. And it's really moving, a really moving series. And you kind of get an understanding of Chinese history just for a little bit in this book. I love it. One of my favorites of all time. So check that out. Those are my recommendations. All right, let's finish up the lore board and take a look at the grand old lore board that we have for Resident Evil and see how I added Resident 6 to that. So I read through all of the reports. a couple nights ago. And it's okay. There's not a whole lot to it. I stand by that. There's not a whole lot of like super interesting stuff. Like the ones in 7 are really good. There's a lot of story building in that. But the ones in 6 are a little I don't know, what's the word for it? Cut and dry, you know? It's like reading through a wiki page. It's not very interesting. So we found out that Ustanak volunteered himself for the C virus, and that was really cool. What else? Added all the villains that we fought. Like I said, a lot of the villains are named after our Serbian words, you know what I mean? So like Ogroman is gigantic, Napad is assault, Gnezo is hive. Very cool. I read more about it to now understand like the Ada stuff. So like Gnezo and the Lipotica are kind of like the failed experiments of Project Ada, right? In Simmons's attempts to recreate Ada, he created those two. So there's Evil Ada, found out more about her, and like reading through the reports kind of gave me a better understanding of what Carla was for, or like what she was trying to get done. I think that's it. It's mainly stuff about Neo Umbrella, and as that kind of like revealed itself, it was interesting. Also, this didn't make sense to me while I was playing the game, but after reading through the thing, and now I understand, when they kidnapped Jake, they created what's called the enhanced C virus, and that's what they injected Pierce and Simmons with. So now I understand that. All right, so post-game theories. I have a couple of three post-game theories at the end of this, right? It raised the question in one of the reports about why did Carla contact Ada at all? Carla could have done this thing. She could have accomplished her entire plan had she not contacted Ada at all. So it beggars the question why. And I think that it hinted this in the file, but there's like a little piece of her that is still in there, right? And I think that her soul, that's what it said, that's what they called it. Her soul is still in there, but I think her soul wanted revenge, but some small part of her soul, some small part of her conscience is what inspired her to ask for Ada. Like, she wanted to get caught. I think she wanted to get caught and she wanted to be stopped in some weird way. I think that the C virus has a little control plagas in it. Now, this was a theory that was not confirmed at all, so I like marked it wrong in my theories and predictions. Actually, I got these two wrong. I got all of my theories wrong during the game. That Simmons was a Neo Umbrella collaborator. He was not. The opposite, in fact. That the real Ada is dead. She is not. She's very much alive. But I kind of still stand by this. Even though it's not confirmed in the game, I stand by the fact that I think C virus has a little plagas in it. Because plagas is how they like described the mutations that were happening in people in Resident Evil 5. And so since the mutations were still happening, it makes me think that it is still going on. It's still in there. So plagas is in the C virus in some way, shape, or form. And the final one is, here, I said this earlier, the family is a really interesting piece of lore that Resident Evil 6 added. I think it's one of the best parts of the game. And so, it beggars the question, who else has been part of the family? Who else is part of this secret society that seeks to control the Western world? And here are my ideas, right? So Spencer, obviously, from the founder of Umbrella, I think he's in it. I think that the Ashford family is in it. So that's Edward, Alexander, and Alfred. I don't know about the daughter. I think she was like stuck in cryogenic sleep, so she couldn't really be part of any secret society there. But I think that the rest of the Ashfords had ample opportunity to be a part of something like that, This is one out of left field, but I think that Ramon Salazar from Resident Evil 4 and the Salazar family could also be part of that entire thing, I think that'd be interesting. I think that'd be interesting that perhaps that the family already knew about plagas and had been keeping it under wraps, with the Salazars. I think that the Tricell Travis family could have been in it. I considered putting Excella in this as well, but I don't think so. I think Excella in her report always talks about how she felt very left out because of her, for a lack of a better word, her pedigree, her family tree. Since she wasn't a Travis, she was kind of excluded a lot. And so, but I think that the Travis family itself is part of that. I think they could be part of the family. And then finally, Michael Warren, the founder of Raccoon City. That makes sense. Right? That's where Umbrella opened their doors, That's where they had part of their headquarters. It makes sense if the mayor was in the family's back pocket. So that is my post-game theories. So let's take a look at our general RE history. If you don't know, as we play through the games, I have been compiling kind of like just a timeline, a lore board just for the overall arcing Resident Evil story, right? From 2 to 6. Most of this was created from the Resident Evil 5 files, but we've been adding on to it with every game that we've been doing so far. So So this is where Resident Evil 6 lives. So I updated everybody's story. So Leon's story is updated here. Ada's story is updated here. Chris is updated here. Jill's updated there. You know, bada boom, bada bing. Sherry's updated here. Sadler was another one that I considered putting on the family list, but I don't think so. I just have a feeling he's not. So I added Adam Benford. Derek Simmons is here. I added the information about C-Virus and how important House is to Carla Radam's plans. Neo Umbrella is right here. Very cool, very interesting. Jake Mueller's here. Added stuff about the family. Excited. Hopefully we'll learn more about them. Helena's here. Also, I found this out. Leon was part of this thing called Stratcom, right? That was the company that he was with during Resident Evil 4. But he moved over to this other thing called the DSO, the Division of Security Operations, founded by Benford, right? And Leon was its first member, in much the same way that Chris was the first member of the BSAA, which I think is really interesting. But this operation is like the government branch that handles like the BOWs and stuff. So that's very interesting. So yeah, that is that addition to the general lore board. Take a gander at that.